Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for your patience. Inknash Wanuksha, Roxanne White, Washnash Kanik, Yakima Kanik, Nimipu Kanik, Grovant Kanik, Nooksack, Wikshaishash, Coast Salish Territory, Duwamish Territory, Muckleshoot Territory. I just want to acknowledge all the Coast Salish tribes that are here for the land that we are on. And I'm a guest here, so I want to raise my hands to all the Coast Salish tribes. And I want to raise my hands to all the guests and everybody that have come here today to share. I really wanted to just start this out like we always start everything out with a blessing from the song. And our songs are our prayers. So we have these beautiful relatives here that are going to open us up. And this is Sacred Water and West Shore. Thank you very much. Everybody rise, please. Did you want to say something?
She was going to speak in the language too, but you already said everything.
No. Do it.
Nih Kalawit, Anashanisha Lehalia Salam. Good evening, my name is Lehalia Salam. Thank you for this honor and opportunity to sing for you tonight. Has Kwazas Lazabut.
Cuts, yeah. Thank you. And you guys can either go out this way, or here, or here, whichever you like. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. I said good evening. So before we get started, again, just reiterating the words of Roxanne, just thank you all for being here. I know the topics that we're talking about tonight are very dear and near to a lot of our hearts, but it's also great for those of you who aren't familiar with the topics that'll be talked about tonight. It's going to be a defining moment. But before we get started, I want to thank West Shore and Sacred Water for being here and for opening up our stage and blessing it with their beautiful songs in a good way. And so to continue with that, in our tradition, we want to bless the space and also acknowledge, the land that we're on. So I'm going to start with that, and then we'll go ahead and get this program started. So again, good evening, everyone. My name is Rachel Heaton. I am an enrolled member of the Muckleshoot tribe, and I'm also a descendant of the Duwamish people. I come from the Siddle family. I come from a long line of basket weavers that used to sit upon the shores in this very city, in these waters that we're just right above. But that would be a skill that's gradually has been not lost, but has definitely been disappearing. And so because of what has taken place on this land and the people that originally inhabited it, you may say that we're here to talk about land acknowledgement. But we can't talk about land acknowledgement if we don't talk about the things that have happened to the very people that originally inhabited this land. So let's do that. So land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes and respects Indigenous peoples as the traditional stewards of the land and the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous people and their traditional lands. To say what she is, she being the land. She used to be I would acknowledge, a small piece of Mother Earth. She used to provide for a people, and she had everything they needed. There was food of abundance with everything from berries to game to indigenous plants to lands filled by a beautiful people. Her waters and shores were filled with our longhouses. They were lined with marshes, with every kind of four-legged creature, birds, and insects. This land was not filled with skyscrapers and freeways and everything from the masses. This is acknowledging what she once was. Now, the land is filled with concrete. The trees and old landscapes are gone. If I keep going and list everything that is here now, we would be here all night long. Except I will acknowledge this because it was of the land. The beautiful people of this land have been stripped away. Its women have gone missing, the men incarcerated, her children taken away. Food is no longer provided in the same ways as it used to be, and more of her people are without homes. Her water is polluted. Her people are going missing and being killed at disproportionate rates. This land is now stolen. The land we stand on, this land that we know now as the city of Seattle, was the home of my ancestors. My ancestors used to sit along these shores, and in a time when it was not called Seattle, they fished, they hunted, they lived. They are still here, and they fill this very space. I acknowledge this ancestral land of the Duwamish people, and I acknowledge this land of the people that fall under the Point Elliott Treaty Tribe of 1855. And so to me, that is acknowledging what this land is. We know it as the city of Seattle right now, but it used to be the land of my ancestors. And so with that, I acknowledge that we are on stolen land. And thank you. All right, so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and we're going to have Roxanne White come up. Roxanne is a grassroots organizer. She's a missing and murdered Indigenous people and family advocate. She's a human trafficking survivor, and she's also a consultant. And so she's going to go ahead and tie in exactly why we're here this evening.
I feel like I already introduced myself earlier, so I'm just going to say that even though people don't realize, I get really nervous at these kind of events. It's a little bit overwhelming, but I'm grateful to be standing here. It's an honor to do this work and to walk alongside my own family and other families. It's been quite a past 4 years. I would say I don't stand here alone. I don't do this work alone. I need to say that we didn't even come to this moment by myself or without the ancestors, without sisters, and without relatives, and prayers of ancestors, and trials and struggles and injustice. You know, missing and murdered Indigenous women and people is not new to us as a people. That term may be something that here in the Americas we weren't very familiarized with, but the epidemic itself is not new. It is over 500 years of genocide, and we have experienced this in our own communities. And as we come to this place today where we're trying to stand on the shoulders of our ancestors, lock arms and learn from our relatives, our First Nation sisters and the families that have been carrying this message and doing this work for decades prior to us doing it here. It is a great honor. Why we are here today is to shed light to the intersectionalities of this epidemic. A lot of people ask me, like, well, Roxanne, what is missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls? Even our own relatives, our own people, our own community, a little bit are baffled at where are our sisters going. But I'd like to propose a question: where are our people going? Where is the injustice at? Where are the intersectionalities? Where can we identify and point out these systemic issues that happen in our communities that target us and also put us in this place of being murdered and going missing and the world not noticing? And I say the world, I mean the Western world. As far as us, as far as a people, we've seen it for generations. And generations back, we can go back into historical times of the Indian Wars and of colonization. We can also go back to the boarding schools. We can also go back, and look at assimilation and forced removal. We can look at the first traffickers and the first brothels. We're going to talk about different things here today that are very heavy. But what I want to say is that these are conversations that it's time to be had. It's time for us to raise our voices and come out of silence and break that silence and lift the families up and let our voices be heard. There's a lot of families in here today. I know that the families that are going to come up and speak and the community members, I know that as Indigenous people, we all share a story or several. Like in my family alone, it's been more than 3 women in my family personally. So this is personal to me, and I know that I don't stand here alone. I know that that each and every one of us, if we look back, if we ask our elders, we can probably share a lot of stories about our people being harmed and going missing and being murdered and nothing happening. And so today we stand here not just to talk about this issue, but to also show the beauty and the resilience of our songs, of our culture, of our little ones. The baby that was out there just lifted my spirit up, because it's the future generations that we stand here for, and hoping to give them hope, and hoping that we know one day that they'll be standing on our shoulders. And so we stand here for them too, and we do this work for them. So I hope that everybody here remembers that, you know, if you need to take a moment, if you need to just step outside for a minute, please look out and kind of like pay attention to each other, because we know that this is not an easy topic. And what we're doing right now is just shedding light to some darkness that has been in our communities for generations. But the other thing we're shedding light to is the resiliency and the beauty of our people as well. So it's not a poor us, look at us, we're here and things are so terrible. We have so much beauty as well, and we're here standing strong. So the video that's gonna come on is called Between the Lines, is from HuffPost, and HuffPost came to Seattle, and it's actually part of this epidemic was like really fighting for media, really fighting for mainstream media to amplify our voices as lived experience survivors of grassroots. This is a grassroots-led movement. It was grassroots women and families that have been doing this work. And so part of what my goal was, and I know so many other sisters and families, was to get mainstream media to tell our stories, to share that our sisters are missing, that our brothers are missing, to share the injustice so that the rest of the world can notice. And now, up to date, there's legislation, there's so much going on, but in everything, what we do here today, I hope that what everybody takes from is not about me, Roxanne. It's not about any one person up here, but it's about the families, and it's about the struggle that these families are going through while they're searching, while they're looking, while they're trying to get justice. That is what we're here to do, because we have a lot of other people doing a lot of other things out here, and everybody has their work, everybody has their place. Today is for the families, and today is for our community, and every speaker out here is gonna basically pull that in to why we are here. So without any further ado, this is Between the Lines, and it can give you a little bit more information about.
On June 7th, 2017, Ashley Loring Heavy Runner vanished from the Blackfeet Reservation in Glacier County, Montana. She was 20 years old. Her disappearance wasn't covered by most major media outlets. Over the past century, thousands of Indigenous women and girls in the United States and Canada have gone missing, in life, in the media, and in the data. Why are missing and murdered Indigenous women going so underreported? In order to understand why these stories go unheard, we spoke to someone on the front lines of telling these stories in the first place.
My name is Anita Lucchesi. I am a doctoral intern at the Urban Indian Health Institute. I'm also a PhD student at the University of Lethbridge, and I'm a Southern Cheyenne descendant.
Anita's work began after escaping her own abuser.
That's what led me to be interested in the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women, because my abuser almost killed me.
Anita assumed some law enforcement organization was tracking data on these disappearances, but the more she looked into it, she realized
no one really is doing it. There are lists out there, but none of them match, none of them are updated frequently. If you're trying to understand the dynamics of the violence that we're experiencing, it's pretty much impossible with the existing resources. I just felt so frustrated that if my abuser did end up killing me, the violence that I experienced that would have taken my life wouldn't have even been counted in a meaningful way.
So Anita got to work, creating what would become one of the only databases of missing and murdered Indigenous women in North America.
The first step was making sense of the lists that are already out there. Put them all together, cross-reference, fill in the gaps.
Only as a cartographer, Anita is telling these stories through maps.
The mapping process became a way for me to draw boundaries in how I wanted my story to be told and how I wanted to connect it to that larger history of dispossession and violence. That's what a map does.
There are over 3,000 cases logged in Anita's database, but most of those are only from the past 6 years. As for the actual number,
At this point, I would estimate that we're missing at least 25,000 cases if we were to go back to 1900.
so why are missing Indigenous women also going missing from the data?
Criminal jurisdiction in Indian country is very complicated.
This is Bree Blackhorse, an enrolled member of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma and an attorney at Galanda Broadman, a Seattle law firm that specializes in tribal law.
To be an attorney in Indian country means that you're often practicing not only in tribal court, state court, federal court, all of these arenas.
This is because criminal jurisdiction of crimes committed on tribal land depends on a number of factors, including the race of the victim and the offender, as well as the type of crime being committed. This jurisdictional thicket could explain why law enforcement is slow to act and slow to collect data.
Everybody wants to blame everything on each other. BIA, federal, state patrol, city police.
This is Roxanne White.
I am Yakima, Nez Perce, Nooksack, and Grovant. I was born and raised on the Yakima Indian Reservation, and about 3 years ago I moved here to Seattle, which is Duwamish territory.
Roxanne is also one of the leading voices on missing and murdered Indigenous women.
They put these borders up when it comes to protecting us. They say, well, that's jurisdiction. We can't do nothing about that. But if I commit a crime, I'll be charged.
According to the Bureau of Justice, Native people are incarcerated at rates 38% higher than the national average, which means while law enforcement might be slow to protect Native people, they aren't slow when it comes to prosecuting them.
I spent a year having some really hard conversations with law enforcement, trying to convince folks that our dead are worth counting. And we experienced very hostile reactions from some law enforcement. Many law enforcement agencies are horribly unaware about this issue, and then even when they are aware, can sometimes be really directly complicit through negligent policies.
Or put more simply,
It's racism.
it took the FBI 8 months to finally begin searching for Ashley Loring Heavy Runner in March of 2018.
She was my student at Blackfeet Community College in Browning, Montana. She's a member of the Blackfeet Nation.
Her family has yet to bring her home. But while there's been a common understanding that the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women occurs exclusively on reservations, the numbers in Anita's database suggest something else.
While it does happen at a high intensity on reservations, it also happens at a high intensity in cities.
Which is important since 71% of Native people live not on reservations, but in urban areas. In the city of Seattle, word of Anita's findings reached Abigail Echo-Hawk, an enrolled citizen of the Pawnee Nation of Oklahoma and the director of the Urban Indian Health Institute, the research arm of the Seattle Indian Health Board.
We work to represent the needs of urban American Indians and Alaska Natives.
Curious about her findings regarding urban Native populations, Abigail reached out to Anita.
We met over Facebook, and I saw a young woman who was dedicating her life to ensuring that the voices of our women were heard.
Her immediate response is, how can I support you doing this work? Without even knowing me, she just had that leap of faith. That's how powerful this data was.
When we go to the halls of Congress, when we talk to people in the states, when we talk to people in our local jurisdictions, very often they tell us, well, you have an individual story, but yet there's no data to say this is an epidemic. And so we partnered with Anita to work to understand what was going on.
The meeting led to a first-of-its-kind report looking at missing and murdered Indigenous women in 71 cities. The report found that just like Native women on reservations, Native women in cities go missing at similarly alarming rates, and no one is keeping track. Their research found 506 cases since the 1940s.
However, with most of them being from 2010 forward, what we know is this is barely scratching the surface.
And when Native women go missing in the data, they also go missing in the media.
As we looked at the media coverage, we began to recognize that those murdered and those who had gone missing, whether it was 30 years ago or yesterday, were still not being represented in the media.
I haven't seen any of our sisters, Alyssa McLemore, Larissa Lonehill, Khadijah, Britton, Ashley, Loring, Heavy Runner, none of them.
While Ashley Loring Heavy Runner went missing from the Blackfeet Reservation, Alyssa McLemore went missing in Kent, Washington, Larissa Lonehill went missing in Rapid City, South Dakota, and Khadijah Britton went missing in Cavello, California. These women went missing not on reservations subject to tribal and federal jurisdiction, but in cities, where state law enforcement continues to look the other way.
For too long, data has been all about other people telling Native people who we are.
If you look in a history book, you're going to see language that talks about us in the past, living in teepees or igloos, but nothing about the current incredible, strong, resilient people that we are today.
And it's time that we tell the world who we are and that the world actually listen to us.
Our resiliency has always been action, and in that action, we are not only sustaining our own communities, but we are part of building a better America.
So thank you for watching the film, and hopefully that gave each of you just a little bit more info again of why we're here and why, why this work is so important to so many of us in the families. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get our speakers going up here and start some panels. We always, as we know, our future generations are the ones that are inheriting, the work that we're doing. And they're the ones that are being the most affected by the decisions, that are made today. And so without further ado, it would not do any justice if we did not have a youth here to, to speak and to, specifically this youth is here carrying this work out. And so I would like to introduce Mariah Lapointe Stafford. She is a Hunkpapa Lakota water warrior. She's actively stood against the methanol plant in Tacoma. She's a water protector at Standing Rock, and she stands against the LNG, and now she is a youth strike speaker for Climate Everywhere, and she's also a Native Daily Network youth coordinator. So without further ado, here's Mariah.
First, a quick shout out to the Duwamish people whose lands we are on tonight. Hello, on Hepe Washta Matakiapi. Good evening, my relatives. My name is Mariah. I'm Hunkpapa Lakota from Standing Rock. I've been a frontline warrior for our Mother Earth for a few years now. Because of that, I normally talk about the environment. I'm a proud water protector. Thanks to my people's fight against Apple, I learned that water is life. So today I am challenged to talk about life. I am only 10 years old. So some of you might be wondering what someone as young as me knows about life. It is a fair question. Let me tell you that I hope to learn a lot more about life in the future. But I do know that because I'm Indigenous, I have a target on my back. We know that our brothers and our sisters that live on remote reservations are in a constant fight to survive. From themselves, because sometimes we hurt each other. But mostly from the people who see us as worthless and as easy targets. As a water protector, I have learned how dirty pipeline and fracking projects affect our people more than any others. What we have left our home is being taken and destroyed, we are seen as worthless and as easy targets. With these projects, so is our Unchimaka, our beautiful grandmother Earth. With the man cams that come with those projects, our sisters are going missing. So often that it is hard to catch our breath before we hear about another, then another, and another. It never stops. I also grew up here in the Pacific Northwest, and I am also Coast Salish. I have learned that over 71% of natives live in urban areas, like me. I wish I could tell you how many of us are hurt, raped, beaten, or killed in urban areas. But do you know what else happens to our people? They deny our existence. I need to tell you that being a water protector means being a life defender. I'm an Indigenous female protector of life, and I know firsthand that I have to fight for life. You see, 1 week from today, it will be the 19th of December. Just 6 short days before many people will be sharing special moments with their families. For my family, it will mark 4 years since my uncle, President Stafford, was shot and killed on the Puyallup Reservation in Tacoma. He was Nez Perce and Seneca. I have learned from my grandparents and Uncle Preston's brother, my daddy, that my uncle really loved me. I was 6 when he died, but for some reason, I don't really remember him. He had a low voice and long hair. Little bits are there, but the memory is fading. Preston was shot by another Indigenous man. Sometimes we hurt each other. I won't get to know Uncle Preston because he's Indigenous. I won't get to feel his love because he's Indigenous. There's a target on our backs because we are Indigenous. But you know what else I have learned about being a water protector? When we are faced with something that seems scary and horrible, we find our fears. Maybe you can help me finish this line. What do we do when our people are under attack? Stand up, fight back. Say it again. What do we do when our people are under attack? Stand up, fight back. Please, stand up and fight back so I might get to know enough about life to talk about it someday. Palamine, thank you.
Yes, something to be proud of right here.
So our next speaker, we're lucky enough that she literally just jumped off of an airplane. She's just going to share a couple words with us. We weren't sure if she was going to be able to be here this evening, but I'm blessed from my own community to share lineage with this beautiful young lady, and she's used her platform. She is a cross-country runner, and she's used her platform to really bring attention to our missing and murdered Indigenous women. And if you saw the amazing picture that's circulating around of her running with the bright red handprint on her hand, she's doing amazing things, and she's doing TED Talks. She's speaking everywhere. And so we're so blessed and so lucky to have Rosalie Fish here just to share a couple words with us.
Wiat Eskeched, Rosalie Fish Seatsta, Buckleshuth Abshed. Hello, as I was already introduced, my name is Rosalie Fish, and I'm from the Cowlitz and Muckleshoot tribes. I grew up on the Muckleshoot Reservation, where I attended Muckleshoot Tribal High School. I ran track and field there, and after watching Jordan Marie Daniel from the Lakota tribe run the 2019 Boston Marathon with the red handprint over her mouth, I realized that I can do the same for my community. When I came to Muckleshoot Tribal High School in 9th grade, I was recovering from a suicide attempt, and running was the only thing that literally kept me alive. And so, my senior year, when I saw that Jordan Marie Daniel, somebody who was unapologetically Indigenous, used her running platform to raise awareness and to fight for her people, it brought a whole new meaning to my life. She made me realize that just as my life is intersectional as being an Indigenous woman, that I can make my activism intersectional. And so I dedicated my 4 races at my state track meet to Indigenous women in my community who deserve to have their stories shared. And what I saw when people were reading their stories and seeing their photos was a connection. We all have the ability to speak for those who have been silenced. We fight for each other, and we inspire each other. I believe that with the right platforms and with the right opportunities, Indigenous women and people and youth can bring not only resilience, but strength and beauty to our people and to our activism. And so I would like to thank all of the speakers here today, and our drummers and our singers, because I know how it feels to be intersectional when I would arrive at track meets and be judged for my tribal school uniform, for wearing my cedar hat. This isn't easy in a way, but it's something that when we can push through and when we can find each other and our culture and our traditions, we become even stronger than anyone could have imagined. So thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Wow. Aren't these young women, these young ladies amazing? Wow. Wow. Our generations to come look really great. I mean, that's a lot of hope and beauty right there. Makes me want to cry. I'm trying to hold back right now. Mariah, you both did an amazing job. Thank you. Right now, I want to introduce Deborah Parker. She is a member of Tulalip tribe. She served as a vice chairwoman from 2012 to 2015. She currently serves as the Director for Equality, Diversity, and Indigenous Education for Marysville School District. Deborah continues to serve as a board member of the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center, where she works on national legislation to project Indigenous women, and many of us may know her as Deborah Parker, Lady Vawa.
Thanking my dear relatives, the Duwamish peoples of this land, thanking our dear relatives, our drummers and singers, my family from the Lummi Nation, and from our Coast Salish peoples who come and open up this space with such love and generosity. I came on stage to sing, and then I walked off to get grounded, and then I thought, no, this is our grounding. The drum is our grounding. It sets our heartbeat in this space, and it lets our relatives know this is who we are, and we come in peace. We come with a good heart and a good mind. So I just want to once again thank our drummers and our singers and our Stahobj relatives, my family from Tulalip. Thank you for being here. Tigwitseed, thank you. This is Human Rights Day, and there's not a better way than to acknowledge human rights, than to acknowledge the first peoples of this land, our relatives, our Indigenous relatives, to acknowledge the elders who are in this room, to acknowledge the Indigenous sisters and the brothers, and then to ask me to speak after these young ladies. Wow, if this is the way our generation is going, then I'm excited to be an elder. I'm excited to sit on a bench, and in our longhouse ways we have couches, so next year bring a couch out. Yeah, this my family over there laughs. Because this young generation has this hope, this voice. It's hard to go backwards when they're talking about a future of being strong and having our Indigenous voices and speaking our language, going to ceremony, and once again standing proud and standing tall to be who we are meant to be. Roxanne asked if I would say a few words about the boarding school, about education and policy and law, and all of that has affected us as tribal nations. You can look at all the laws created, and they're meant to wipe us out. I work in a school district. I just drove from the school district here, and yes, I had my skirt on. Some of the young people at school, you can see some of our Indigenous girls smiled at my skirt today that I wore to work, and other kids said, "Oh, cool skirt." And I'm thinking, yeah, when I was younger, I may not have worn that skirt. In fact, I was teased, much like many of our other relatives. My age, we were teased for being Native. We were put down for even attempting to speak our language. We were shamed out in so many different ways that it was hard to stand up and be proud. And our young people still see this today. And I'm asking for our relatives from all four directions, each and every one of you in this room and beyond, to start to embrace our Indigenous children as well, to start to honor their culture and their language. And I speak with the teachers I work with, and I ask them that if you don't know, there's Google now. There's no reason not to know. And we are catching up. We are taking back from the earth. We're taking back our teachings. And so we're only going to be stronger. And this missing and murdered epidemic, it has affected every single one of us, whether you're Indigenous or not. There's a saying that our elders have taught us, the hurt of one is the hurt of all. And if you're not disgusted by the murdering and the death of Indigenous peoples, then maybe it's time to have a meditation, to lead another meditation and start to remember those who have passed on because they did not deserve to die. And you know, last year I had a teacher say, it's time to move on now. We're past that. And I wish we could be past that. I wish that we could see a day where our children are safe. But as long as our young girls and our young boys and our relatives are not safe, we will not be silent. We will never be silent when injustice is occurring on this land or any lands that we visit. It is our responsibility to speak these words in the most passionate and strong way possible. And our young people are here, they're hearing those words because they'll carry this message forward. That the violence against our Indigenous women and men and our relatives must stop. And we are here today to make sure this message continues to resonate, not only throughout the Duwamish territory here, but throughout the Coast Salish ways, down into California, Northwestern Territory, to the East Coast, and everywhere around these lands. Justice must be served. Our lost, our missing Indigenous women must be found. And I do believe through our spiritual ways that we will find our sisters and we will find our brothers as well. There's a study with the National Institute for Justice, and in that study, it talks about the violence against our Indigenous boys. And that rate is far too high. And it's something that we're beginning to talk about. But I hope and pray that we speak in a stronger voice, in a more united voice. Because we all deserve, each and every person deserves to live a healthy life filled with their own culture and their identity. And we hope this not only for today, tomorrow, but well into the future. So I just want to say, Tigwitseed, thank you, dear relatives, for being here tonight, for caring enough to sit with us in this space, and for offering your good thoughts, because you're allies. Each and every one of you in this room is an ally to us. Your good thoughts help us find those relatives that we miss and that we love. And to those who are missing a loved one, you're not alone. You are not alone. You're never alone. We will be there beside you in prayer, in walk, in our songs. We will do whatever we can to find your dear relative and to make sure that our future is strong. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the organizers, Roxanne, for the invite. And I know this evening will be very powerful, so we hope and pray you're with us in good thoughts and good prayers. ACM Tigwitseed. Okay, Roxanne, you're first, since you're in the first chair. Hey, just kidding. She's like, don't make me first. And if I'm the moderator, then I get to choose, right? All right, we have a beautiful panel with us here. We have Rachel Heaton. We have Carolyn DeFord. Roxanne White. And Abigail Echo-Hawk. Thank you for joining us here this evening. Can we get a round of applause?
Thank you.
The timekeeper, right, over here. Okay.
There's our timekeeper. Hi.
Okay. We have this panel, we have two questions. The first question, we're going to ask Abigail, because she's great. She loves touring the United States. She's in the back, a lot of the sisters up here, they do presentations across the country. And Abigail and I were in the back saying, well, this is our fourth. And she says, well, this is my fourth today. So she outdid me. So since you're warmed up, Abigail, we're going to ask you this question. What would be the most informative information you could give a person that is not part of a Native community about murdered and missing Indigenous persons?
So I saved my best answers for tonight, hopefully. Save the best for last, always. Again, I'm Abigail Echo-Hawk. I am an enrolled citizen of the Pawnee Nation of Oklahoma on my father's side, and was born and raised in the heart of Alaska amongst the Upper Otna-Athabascan people on my mother's side. And I am so blessed to serve as the Chief Research Officer at the Seattle Indian Health Board here in this beautiful, thriving community. And I always think about my work at the Health Board and how a lot of folks here in the city of Seattle don't even know that we exist, or that we have an incredible, thriving urban Indian population here. And so when I talk to folks who don't know anything about missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and people, that's one of the first things I tell them, is that you probably sat next to somebody with an Indigenous heritage today. You didn't know it because this country has decided you shouldn't know it. And so you don't even recognize us when we're part of your communities, when we're part of your churches and of your schools, and we are everywhere. We are part of the thriving
of the communities in which we live. And because it's so easy to ignore us, that's why for many people they've never heard about missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and people. I know that this is something that has happened personally in my family. I rarely meet a Native person who has not been impacted by this. The work that we've done at the Urban Indian Health Institute, which is part of the Seattle Indian Health Board, we currently have a series of 3 reports, one of them co-authored with Anita Lucchesi. We just released one recently looking at the absolute, not only inaction, but bad report that was done by the Washington State Patrol on missing women here in Washington State. We've released that information as part of, not because our community needed it, not because any of the beautiful people in these incredible skirts walking in the strength of their ancestors, not because we didn't know, but because we needed the tools to let everybody else know. So what I say to people is, when you contribute to the vitality of our community, you're contributing to the vitality of our entire community and of this nation. And if we don't stop the violence against American Indian and Alaska Native women, here in the city of Seattle, my organization did a study with Native women living here in the city of Seattle, and we found that 94% of the women that we talked to in the city of Seattle had been raped in their lifetime. 94% in this city, I'm not even talking about anywhere else, in the land that we're on right now. But nobody knew, because we're so invisible. And what we're working towards and what people need to know is that the silencing of us is part of the colonialism that is meant to erase us from this land, so we are no longer here, so that all of our resources can be taken and our treaty rights eliminated. And until we address that injustice, we will continue to be invisible. But I tell you, like these ladies on the stage and every Indigenous person I see in this audience, we refuse to let that ever happen. It will never happen. We will always be here. When everybody else is gone, we will remain. And the victimization that we see in our community has to end. And we will no longer be silent, and we will no longer be invisible. And until they recognize that we are here and we are present, this crisis will continue.
Thank you. Rachel, same question. What would be the most, what information would you like to give to people who are not part of our Native American community?
Again, my name is Rachel Heaton. I am an enrolled member of the Muckleshoot tribe, and I'm also a descendant of the Duwamish people. And again, I'm just thankful to be here to, for one, share this space with these 4 amazing women up here who are doing so much amazing work in our communities. I would say, for information that I would want someone that is not a part of this work or part of our communities to know. First, I think one of the things that we have to understand is this has been a process that has been ongoing since, well, we can say 1492, when we talk about the fact that when these systems came into place, that has been the start of the elimination of our women being sexualized and being tokenized, among many other things. But I think it's also important to know that, again, to reiterate what Abigail said, is that you are surrounded by Indigenous people every day. We're here. And the genocidal tools that have been placed against our people are, and these are the issues that have resulted from that. So when we talk about the fossil fuel industry, when we talk about resource extraction, when we talk about all of these intersectional issues, police brutality, environmental injustices, all of those lead to these issues that we talk about with missing and murdered Indigenous peoples, with missing and murdered Indigenous women. And it stems back to a system. And we are continued to be affected by it every single day. Every day, women are victimized. Our women are sexualized. Our women are going missing. They're being murdered. Our men are being incarcerated. And they're constantly targeted. And so this isn't a matter of, like, maybe this happened to this person, maybe this happened to this person. If you sat down with 5 Native people, 4 of those Native people have been affected by someone in their families, gone missing, has been killed, And I would actually be shocked if it wasn't all 5. That actually is more of a more real number, because I know every single person I'm around every single day is affected by this. I think one of the biggest things that we can do is to educate ourselves, starting off with visiting the tables, finding out, learning about these families, learning about if you have ways. Sometimes you have a connection to media. Sometimes you have a connection to someone that can, work on, these issues and to bring them forth. Maybe there's a media person that that can help out. It's about getting involved, and it's about, no longer staying blind to these issues and acting as if they have not happened around you. And so talking to families, how can you get involved? How can you get information out there? But then sometimes just sitting back and listening and observing what's going on and recognizing the world that we live in right now is a very scary place. And as good human beings, what can we do to make it a better place? And what kind of work can we do, or what can we do personally to help and to bring attention, to support? And I think a lot of it is denial. I think we live in a country that has continued to keep us invisible, that has continued to deny that these are issues that happen in our communities, these issues that continue to not be in the media. We have over 5,000 women since 2016 that have not been reported, have not had the justice done to be searched for, to be acknowledged. And so I think any time that you recognize that you live in a privileged state and that you actually do contribute to these issues when you act like they do not happen. So sit down and have uncomfortable conversations. Sit down and learn about these issues that are affecting our people. Because as the original stewards of this land, we do have the answers. We do have the answers of what's going to save our future generations. We do have the answers of what we're going to do to protect Mother Earth. And until we protect our people, we cannot protect Mother Earth. And I think that's important to know.
Yes. Thank you. Those are powerful words. With the study that Abigail's done, the information from the Seattle Indian Health Board has gone nationwide, and it's really become a tool that others have used to help us tell the story of how many missing and murdered Indigenous women are out there. And we're just beginning to uncover that veil. And so, Rachel, your words about understanding who's in the room and how many this impacts is so critical. Before I left here tonight, I asked one of our staff members if he was coming to this event, and he looked at me and his eyes started watering, and he said, my cousin is Savannah LaFontaine Graywind. And I guess here I am, I'm director of our program. I didn't know that that was his cousin, and I asked, I said, can I give you a hug? Because, man, yes, you've been out there, your family is fighting. The loss of a relative is so painful, and it didn't need to happen, so we're here with you. And just knowing that helps me understand who I'm serving in education with, and what we can do to support each other through that healing. So yes, we are in this awakening, so thank you for your words. Carolyn DeFord, can you share with us as well what motivates you to do this work, and how you'd like to share your information with those who don't understand this crisis?
Caught me off guard. I was prepared for their question. My motivation has been, I lost my mom October 25th, 1999, and she went to the store to meet a friend and never showed up. And that long journey, it's been 20 years now, and so every time somebody would go missing in the news, on social media, anytime I would hear about it or see it on TV and Law and Order and CSI and all of those shows, I would go right back to the moment when my mom disappeared, and I would see posts of missing people, and I would know what that family was going through and that there was nothing there for them. There was no services. What we think happens when we call law enforcement in crisis, when our world is turned upside down, and that's our last-ditch effort, is to call the police. We're afraid of crying wolf. We're afraid of overreacting. We're afraid of so many things. We're afraid of the worst-case scenario. And I knew what they were going through, and it would take me right back to that moment, and I knew that they didn't have any help or support. That kind of inspired me to start raising awareness here in our local community in the Puyallup Reservation. And in 2016, I started a volunteer organization called Missing and Murdered Native Americans to provide support to families, to do outreach and awareness, to advocate and look at the issues that were causing so many of our loved ones to go missing and try and increase prevention and awareness in those areas. That was my big motivator. And it wasn't until just a couple of years ago when this really started, people here in the United States started talking about it more, that I was able to get a lot of the healing that I needed by sharing my story, by talking about my mom, by having a safe place to remember her and honor her through change, honor her through supporting other families on this journey with me. One thing that I would like people to know, that if you're not in the tribal community, we're all aware, for the most part, of the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous people. Non-Native folks, a lot don't know about that. So whatever your role is in the community, whether you're a teacher, an educator in the healthcare profession, transportation, administrative, whatever your role is, there's opportunities in that role to help us find our loved ones, share posters, look at trafficking indicators. This is an issue that we can't count on our government and our systems to solve. As communities, we have to solve it together. And whatever our role is, whatever you do, there's an opportunity for you to use your voice, your skill, your talent, your piece in the movement to bring somebody in to raise awareness, bring somebody in to talk and give you tools. Because when it comes to missing and murdered Indigenous people, or even missing people, just the fact of filing a missing persons report, the system that's there to help you find your loved one doesn't work no matter what race you are. Indigenous communities, we just have additional hurdles and speed bumps and dead ends and jurisdictional problems that make us exceptionally vulnerable. But missing persons it's not discriminatory. Whatever happens in our lives that make us vulnerable, it's happening to so many, but you all have tools to help with that if you think and see them.
And Carolyn, what advice would you give us on how we can help find missing persons?
Look at some of the social media sites that are available. That's where the most current information on missing people is generally being posted. And there's a lot of social media sites across the country. Just within our area alone, we have 3 or 4 within Facebook and Instagram that are sharing real time. As soon as we hear from families that someone is missing, that information is getting shared, and it's getting shared across the country. If you're in transportation, look at that site. If you're in healthcare, look at it. Because due to HIPAA laws, we can't reach out within medical facilities, and some of our loved ones don't know that we're looking for them. There was a statistic that I heard earlier this summer that almost 90% of the people who are missing don't know they're missing. So they could be homeless, they could be just going about their lives and cut ties with their families, and they have the right to do that, but they do need to know that people are looking for them so that their families can stop literally imagining the worst case scenario every time they think about what happened. Be aware of who's missing and what work is being done in your community so that you can bring those workers in and those advocates in to help you look at how your intersection or your job, your business, your focus area may be able to increase awareness and help find people.
Good advice. Thank you. How many here are on Facebook? Raise your hand if you're on Facebook. Okay, let's be friends, okay? We know that Indian country is a small community, so anytime you see missing and murdered Indigenous people, hit forward it to your friends list, because even some people say, well, what if they're just a runaway, and well, if they're a runaway and they're found, then we can take it off of our Facebook. So it's good to share. Just think if you lost a loved one, you'd want others to share that information so we could find our loved ones. So thank you. Roxanne, are you excited for this next question? She's like, stay on the page.
No, I didn't say that.
No. Similar question. What should we know about missing and murdered Indigenous persons, and what can we do? What should non-Native community understand? And for Native community, some of us are learning as well. What can we do? And what should we know about this grassroots movement?
Well, thank you. I'm kind of nervous after these three. I should have went first. No. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at my sisters out here, and I'm thinking about the families. And I'm thinking about my family currently, the duress that we're under, thinking about like how hard this is on both sides, being an advocate and being a family member, being a survivor, and just being Indigenous, just being Native, right? And then being a Native woman. I think that a lot of people, in the time that I've been doing this work, in the time that I've been an activist in the community for our people, I think I would like to tell the non-Native community that I'm not here to heal you or make you feel better. I'm not here to completely educate you and answer all your questions. And I think the reason why I say this is because in doing this work, I know that everybody wants to help. There are good people that want to support, and I believe that sometimes the best way of supporting this crisis, if you're non-Native, is our families are under attack. I currently have relatives that are drinking themselves to death. I've had relatives that I've buried to alcoholism. And I have a cousin that's possibly missing right now. And I have a cousin that we haven't got her remains back. We can't even give her a ceremony. There's real issues, real struggles happening. And oftentimes in this work, I can't call my Native community because everybody's going through something. And I get that. Bringing everybody together here, I've had to be reminded, and I've had to remind myself, everybody's going through something. Everybody's home life, their reservations, their areas, wherever you live, when you're Native, it doesn't matter if you're on or off the reservation, which 71% of us don't even live on our reservations. We live in urbanized areas. So the circumstances don't change. I think that, what a lot of people don't realize about missing and murdered Indigenous people, and maybe they do or they don't, but that this epidemic is not just about our women and girls. I think that my heart as a mother of 2 sons and 2 grandsons, I'm here to say, remember our brothers. Remember our nephews. Remember this historical. If you don't know about it, if you don't know, educate yourself. But don't ask me to educate you, but educate yourself. Google search is like what my main thing. I go to that all the time. But what I'm saying is just understand that that through colonization, through the invasion, through all of this, that our men, one of the goals was to emasculate them, to take them away from being our protectors and the providers, the boarding schools. You know, we have elders, and there's very few that are left, that the men, the grandpas won't talk about it. My dad did this work. He worked for an attorney, and they took on the Jesuit priests and the Catholicism, and my dad worked with elders, and he would tell me not what they said, but that changed his life, that changed his spirit. How many elders never spoke one time about it. I think that it's almost a pain in me for people to remember that our men and our boys, that the healing that needs to happen in our communities is not just for us women, but for our sons, for our elders. And I'm crying because it's just so real for me. My son is in treatment right now. I'm going to get personal because that's just who I am. I have a son that struggles with depression. I have many nephews and nieces. There are things that when we do this work as communities, as an organizer, as a sister, as a family member, that remember the families and remember that we all have an ability to think about what they need. It's as simple as seeing if they have food. It's as simple as going to them and asking how you can help, going to the grocery store for them. There's just so many things, bringing songs to them, bringing them medicine. I mean, invite them to a sweat. I mean, take care of them because it is, my aunt was murdered in front of me, but my cousin, when she went missing, those almost 300 days, I watched what my cousin Sissy went through. But when they found her, what I realized was that what I went through and to continuously go through this, a lot of times we could forget what each other's going through, and we could forget, like, we get caught up in our own lives and not remember to check on one another and to see how we can help one another. I think that's really important. And to support grassroots. Please support grassroots, because grassroots is going to be here at the midnight hour. We're here. When there's nobody, when your program and your organization, when you go home and you turn off your work phone, I got my work phone right here. It's 24/7. It's on those cards out there. I have my Facebook groups. I'm available. Support us if it's, I'm not saying financially, but come out and see what we need. We need a lot of support in that area. So thank you very much.
Excuse me, each of us speak to the intergenerational trauma that we've been through, and that woven path to sobriety, that path to wellness, that path to health. And so I just want to thank our panelists here today for being humanitarians, for being champions. It's beautiful to sit with Indigenous women and hear your voice that resonates throughout the city and beyond. We need to hear your voice. We need to feel this energy of awakeness. And Rachel, Abigail, Carolyn, and Roxanne, thank you for your work. Thank you for your undying efforts to make sure that we have a voice and that the future generations will be strong and healthy. And we're going to keep doing this together. Again, the theme of this is you're not alone. We have the cedar here to remind us that the healing is all around us. We're people from the cedar, from the salmon, and nature is all around us. And we're going to find this healing with the brilliance, not only on the stage here, but in each and every one of us who are educators, who are doctors, lawyers, grandmothers, uncles, fathers. We have a lot of work to do, and this gives me hope. So thank you. Thank you to our warrior sisters who are here today, and continued work. We will keep you in our prayers. Thank you.
One of the, on the panel question of if you're talking to someone and they aren't Native, but you want to tell them what they can do, I'll bet everybody in this room knows of at least one Indian that was murdered and it was marked down as an accident.
Yeah.
I'll bet if you all think about it, every single person knows that. You know, my grandson, Eric Taylor, was a duck diver. He dived with his dad and Jim over here, and he had some duck diving money. He had some per capita money. He had a hotel room with a jacuzzi, and they found him dead in the jacuzzi, bruised up, beat up, money gone, his bling gone, and this is in Tacoma. They marked it as accidental death, like a gooey duck diver really is going to drown accidentally in a jacuzzi. But they're lazy. They're lazy. That medical examiner is under investigation. But it's everywhere. You know, these Indians are murdered, and it's marked down as an accidental death. You know, so many Indians are murdered, and it's marked down as an overdose. And really, a lot of these people who are living in homeless camps, our girl Valencia Banquez was murdered in a homeless camp, and these people, just maybe they missed a paycheck, or maybe their rent got raised up just a little bit higher, and they couldn't hold it together when they did that sweep, and they found 7 dead in the homeless camps. They make it sound like they're all druggers. They're all drunks and druggers, but they're not. A lot of them are just people who were 1 paycheck short and couldn't pay their rent and found themselves out in the cold. And they dehumanize them by making them sound like they were nothing but druggers, but truly, you know, they're dying of hypothermia here in America, you know, just because they were poor. And so we have a whole system that does nothing but lie. So in these cases, you know, when we're talking with these people who who aren't Native and don't know anything. We have to really push to get them to pay attention and stand up and speak out. And we have to stand up and speak out. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Ramona. Thank you so much. I love you too. I love you too. Okay, I had to do that, you guys. That's our ways, right? An elder was speaking to me, and if she's speaking to me, she's speaking to all of us. And to give her that time, that is what we do. That is what I know. So our next speaker, oh man, let me tell you about this sister. Agnes flew over here from Indiana. She is First Nations, born and raised First Nations. I don't know exactly how long she's been living in the States, but what I do know is that I've admired her work. I've admired the way that she walks in this movement, the education, the woman she is, the voice that she is, the wife, the sister, the mother that she is, and the family member that she is, grassroots-wise and for decades. For me, it was very important to have grassroots First Nations leaders here, at least one, if we could just get one. So with no further ado, my sister Agnes Woodward.
Thank you all for welcoming me to your community. I'm really honored to be here amongst all of you. I would first like to acknowledge everybody here that is a family member of the missing and murdered. The strength and the power that our family members carry is not a small thing. It is our family members who, with their courage and their love, have laid bare their grief for the world to recognize this genocide that is happening to our people. And Indigenous people were not just marginalized and vulnerable. We have been targeted by policy and legislation aimed at our extermination. So being Indigenous means that we're stronger because we keep our hearts compassionate after so much hardship. So I stand with you today as a family member of an aunt who was murdered. Her name was Eleanor Laney. She was 24 years old at the time, a mother of two and a survivor of Canada's 60s scoop. And I'm going to talk very personally, and I feel like that's just a really powerful way to interact with people when we can share our truths and our stories, and that's where my knowledge comes from, is my lived experience and my family's lived experience. So my aunt at a young age was forcefully removed from her family, and that's what the 60 scoop was. It replaced the residential schools in Canada, and the process was to take children, Indigenous children from their home and put them out in foster homes and adopt them out into non-Native families, another process of the assimilation. And so my aunt was away from her family for 12 years, my aunt, my mother, and 4 of their siblings. And it wasn't until my aunt was old enough to run away and create a life for herself that she found, as she had expressed, peace. And I feel like there's so much to be said about the trauma that our Indigenous children have experienced in a system that they feel safer living on the streets than they do in their foster homes. So in February of 1982, Eleanor Laney body was found frozen on the outskirts of Calgary, Alberta. My family was told that there was nothing suspicious about her death, but it seems suspicious that her case was filed under a different name in a different city. And the police knew who she was because they had given her a ride to my kokums, my grandmother's house, plenty of times. I believe that my aunt was a victim of the Starlight tours. And the Starlight tours was a process in Canada where police would drive Indigenous people to the outskirts of a city in the middle of winter at night and leave them there to walk back, to have them sober up or, and it wasn't until there was a young man by the name of Daryl Knight that survived, and he told his story. And the truth started to unravel, and we learned that this had been happening to our people for years. And I remember as a little girl marching in the streets after the death of Neil Stonechild and Rodney Nestas and Lawrence Wagner. And so we don't know the number. We don't know how many people of our people fell victim to the Starlight tours because police failed to see us as human beings. So in 2010, my family decided to add my aunt to Canada's list of missing and murdered Indigenous women. And it was a difficult decision as my family never discussed her murder before. Like a lot of families, it brought about too much pain. And it brought all those layers of trauma that can be attached to the loss of a loved one. And that pain, that trauma, sometimes that can be unbearable. So once my family came to terms, we decided that the reason we would stand with the national inquiry and through that whole process and tell our story was because if we could help eliminate one more family of having to go through that, then it's worth it. You bear your pain and you move forward and you tell the truth, you tell your story, and the world should listen. So I've been very fortunate to learn directly from my family's lived experience and their resilience. From them, I have learned the importance of family involvement, family healing, and family protection. I wanted to tell a little story about the history of the movement that a lot of people don't know. Because every movement starts from somewhere, from some spark. And in February of 1989, my aunt Mona Woodward stood alongside 3 other Indigenous women on the corner of Hastings and Main in downtown Vancouver, British Columbia. And they stood on that corner holding signs that read, "Have you seen her?" and a photo and the name of a woman who was missing from downtown's east side. And so it's been grassroots from the very beginning. And they did that because Indigenous women their sisters, their friends, were disappearing at alarming rates. And some of them were being found in alleyways or, in dumpsters. So these women knew that it was time to take action, and they began to look for the missing themselves. The MMIW movement grew from those actions that they took 30 years ago. And I just find that crazy, 30 years ago. In Canada alone, that's over 4,000 cases that have been reported, only reported. That's over 30 years of injustice. So on February 14th, 1992, the first MMIW march was held in Vancouver, British Columbia, which isn't far from here, and if you ever get a chance to go, you should, because every year on that day, thousands take to the street, and it's just amazing to see. And just this past year, my niece, Justice, she's 13 years old, she helped lead at the front of the march, and they lay down flowers and rose petals in all the places downtown where women were found, or the last place that they were seen. So it's a really powerful thing that they do there. I also want to talk about the importance of including family members of the missing and murdered in all areas of the work that is done within this movement. Because the movement in Canada has been successful because family members have stood up as leaders. In the case of missing and murdered Indigenous people, survivors and family members are the experts. Families know what they need. Their voice is a voice of justice. And their shared lived experiences have collectively created a map for justice. And Family Action brought an international focus on the violence endured by generations of Indigenous women. And the families of the missing and murdered in Canada have stayed true to the movement. They stay true even when agencies, organizations, or individuals use their stories of grief, even when they felt exploited, or when the stories of their loved ones were taken and used without their permission. They were used as numbers for grants, funding, and fundraisers, and they never had say over those reports or those dollars. And it's vital that anyone doing work within this movement be mindful and inclusive of the families of the missing and murdered. We have some pretty amazing and selfless advocates, activists, and organizations that are doing the work. But it's important to remember that the families of the loved ones are the ones on the front lines, and no one is more involved than they are, because they don't have the privilege of walking away or stepping down when the work is too hard or too much to bear. So our Indigenous ways demand that we move forward for the families, and that families are core to all actions taken on their behalf. This is how we honor our families. This is how we honor their loved ones that are missing or have been murdered. And this is how we honor our Indigenous women as sacred. I want to give a special thank you to the family members that are here today with us. Thank you for your love and your courage that guides us. May Creator bless you and keep you close. Hi, hi.
So, why don't I start out with Selena? Selena? Selena, do you want to introduce yourself really quickly?
My name's Selena Chiefstick. I'm from Chippewa Cree, Rocky, Montana, but I was born and raised in Seattle, Washington.
Okay. And so the first question is, outside of media and community, what is it that you would like the world to know about you or your situation? You don't have to share any details about anything specifically if you're not comfortable right now, but do you have something that you would like people to know about your family's journey in dealing with this tragedy?
It's not an easy road. It's a day-to-day battle. My brother was the man in my family.
It's okay. It's totally okay. Thank you, Chelsea.
It's a struggle, for sure. It's hard to explain how I feel about everything, and watching my mom and my sister and my own daughter and my nephews and my brother's kids, like they all hurt, and there's nothing I can do about it. And the fact that I know now that even more so, his kids don't really care for the police. And that's sad. I know I really don't care for the police. I try to avoid it at all costs. And there's no reason why we should be scared to call the cops. They're there to protect us, not.
Do you want me to, so do you mind if I tell people, because that didn't really come out?
Yeah.
Selena's brother was gunned down by a Poulsbo police officer. And it's under investigation. Thank goodness for body cams. There's still 4 other body cams out there, hopefully, or if not, the one body cam that they had basically didn't show the key parts, but you could hear things. And this was during a 4th of July holiday time out in an open public space where people were out with families and children, and Stoney was gunned down by a police officer and not tased, not even, you know, asked to put his hands behind his back, nothing. And this is why Selena's here, and this is part of one of the intersectionalities of this. And this is really hard, so I'm really happy that you're here. I'm proud of you, Selena, for coming here and being here for your brother and your mom, which I got to meet your family. It's okay to cry. I want you to know that it's okay to cry, because tears are healing. They are healing. And if at any point you feel like you want to say something, you just let me know, okay? Is there anything else you'd like to say? Okay. I'm going to just move right here. Why don't we just surround each other? Just move these dang tables out the way I feel like we're going to need to. Because I know my sis right here may need some support. And I'm just going to come right here and hold space with each other. Second question, or same question for you, Laurie. Outside of media and community, what is it you would like the world to know about you and the journey that you and your family or you've been on, and whatever you feel comfortable with in sharing about your family's journey and your journey on this search for Esther. Tell a little bit about Esther and who you are, please.
My name is Laurie Thomas, and I am Esther Smith's sister. I'm number 9 of 10 children. Esther's number 5 of the 10. So she's my older sister. Her mother died in 1967. We were all raised in foster homes. We were all separated. There's 7 girls in my family. I grew up the farthest away from everybody. And so when I would come home from school, and they would say, "Laurie, there's a letter from one of your sisters on the mantle," I'd run to the mantle and I'd grab the letter. It was like Christmas morning for me, because I missed my sisters. I felt alone. And when they would write to me, and Esther would send pictures, she always sent pictures. She liked to take pictures and send pictures. She was always so kind and generous, helping homeless people. And she's a mother of two boys, Jesse and Winfield Smith. Every time my family gathers at my house, I have pictures of Esther in the kitchen and in the dining area. And we'll gather as a family, and inevitably Somebody will say something about Annie. Because that's what we used to call each other. We used to call each other E. I called her E. She was my E. And I was her L. Somebody will say something about Annie. And next thing you know, we're standing, holding each other, crying. It's been almost 14 years. And it hasn't gotten any easier. It just seems like the more time that passes, I wonder if I'm ever going to see her again. I traveled clear across the United States, hoping to find some answers, and found nothing. I miss my sister. I miss the laughter we shared. I miss the love we have for each other. The close bond we shared. We were sisters, we got mad at each other. We yelled at each other. We had fights. But we loved each other. And we always came back to that. We always came back to that. And we're able to forgive the other for whatever usually stupid mistake the other had made. I miss her. Did I answer the question?
Yes, thank you, Laurie. Thank you so much. Same question for you, Chelsea. Outside of media and community, what is it that you would like the world to know about you, your journey, your family's journey, in this tragic epidemic, this movement?
Hi, my name's Chelsea Hendrickson. My auntie's name was Geraldine Nachach Hendrickson. She was murdered May 29th, 1998 in downtown Seattle by her non-native partner in a domestic violence dispute. Prior to her own murder, she served 18 months in King County Jail for murdering her a partner that she was in a domestic violence relationship prior to her own murder. Within that King County court system, she encountered a lot of bias, a lot of racism, a lot of institutionalized racism. She had to endure like 3 trials and a ridiculous amount of hardships, and being in a courtroom of people, all people in positions of power, white judges, non-native people on a 13-person jury. As a Native woman facing all of that, her story is a complicated one and a long one. I'm sure I don't have a whole lot of time to tell it. But within, that was 20 years ago that happened. My family has had 20 years to dwell on that, sit on that, live through that shame, live, with fellow families and Native people across Indian country who endure this, who have experienced this on a daily basis, up until Standing Rock kind of happened, and MMIW, came not too long after the Standing Rock. I feel like it's like a new renaissance for Native people. We don't have to be ashamed no more. We don't gotta, within our own communities, talk to each other. Now we got Facebook, we got platforms and things, allies that actually want to support us, who are realizing, okay, we are part of the system, we are part of this racism. So for non-Native people who are coming here tonight to learn, that hear about this movement, like, hey, we want to do something about it. My biggest advice to you is, my advice really has never changed, honestly, is put your money where your mouth is. I think as a Native people, and me personally as a Native woman, I'm tired of talking about it with non-Native people. Roxanne was saying earlier, you got Google at your fingertips. You can easily print out those reports that Abigail Echo-Hawk, UIHI, recently released in 2018, and donate money to events like this. In that context, I think that's the most way that non-Native people can be impactful with money, because that's what we're struggling with. And Native organizations, now have the opportunity, are being ran and led by Native people. And I'm proud to be a part of a city that's being ran by Native women. You got Abigail Echo-Hawk, just a lot of people on the forefront running these organizations and hiring our people, because there's nobody that can heal us but ourselves. So I'm real thankful to not only be part of this conversation, but to be witness to those amazing songs tonight. That really grounded me and put my heart in the right place. And I didn't even know I needed those songs, you know what I mean? So that's healing within itself. In the broader context of things, I can understand how my sis Selena here is having a hard time, because that just happened to her family, to her brother in July of this year. My aunt was murdered 20 years ago, and the part of the job of what I do, I'm a program coordinator for a domestic violence sexual assault program. So I've literally, for the last 2 years, have had 2 years of practice fighting back those tears, getting up on it in a place where I could put myself in a position to speak without breaking down in tears, without becoming so overwhelmed with rage and sadness and despair that I'm able to stand here and articulate how I'm feeling and what my family's experience has been, and feel that the vibes coming off of Selena right now, because I know exactly what she's going through. Not exactly, because for one, I can't imagine losing my brothers. I have 2 brothers, and my little brother's 20, he just turned 25 in November. He's getting out of the feds next Tuesday on the 17th. He's in Florence, Colorado federal pen right now, and he's gonna be coming back to Seattle. So I can't imagine losing my brothers. My baby brother is like my son, you know what I mean? I can't imagine, but I do have somewhat of knowledge of what you're going through in that sense of being a family member in that way. So my heart goes out to these ladies, everybody, every Native person up here, because in Indian country, we know what it's about, we know what we're dealing with, and we know how to heal each other. And in the larger context, I'm really excited and happy for the next panel that's coming up about the mass incarceration and recidivism for our Native men, because like I said, my little brother is getting out next week, and I'm hoping that he could connect with these men that are coming up on this panel.
Hey.
And I'm not Coast Salish. I'm enrolled Northern Rapo from the Wind River Res in Ethity, Wyoming, and I'm also Chupich from Mukoriak, Alaska. But back home in September, just like her brother, one of my relations, Anderson Antelope, he was sitting the only, there's a border town on my reservation. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Wind River in Wyoming.
I have.
There's a border towns on my reservation, which is Riverton. Mm-hmm. Long history, I know we don't got all night, but my relation was panhandling in front of the Walmart, and the police, Riverton Police Department came up. They said there was a dispute. They didn't taser him. They didn't say put your hands behind your back. Right. They shot him point blank in the head in front of everybody. It's like near payday at Walmart. Stay at Walmart, right? So there's just hundreds of natives in front of everybody, children, just like they did her brother. You know what I mean? So I'm grateful for that larger conversation that the next panel is coming up. But in terms of, what I want people to know, I think we've all kind of covered it here tonight. I just want to raise my hands and say thank you for having me here. People who are interested and don't know anything about it, and my sisters and my family members up here, I want to stay connected with you guys, and my heart goes out, and, haho, thank you. Guyana.
Thank you, Chelsea. Well, this was one of the most important panels that I believe that, the families that are impacted by the injustice and the violence, and the ones that are still missing their loved one or searching for their loved one. The Macklemores, I wanted to say, I don't know what happened to them. I hope they're okay, but Tina Michelle Macklemore was going to be sitting in this chair, and I feel that it's appropriate to tell you that Alyssa Macklemore went missing, I had it at the top of my head. She went missing 10 years ago. She went missing 10 years ago, and they're 10 years ago, April 9th, 2009. currently still looking for her. When she went missing, she was only 21 years old. She is one of the families that I've been able to work with, and as well as like Laurie and also Carolyn has done this work. And I went out and supported the Chief Stick family in the March for Justice out in Poles Bowl. And I've been able to work with Chelsea. And so it's something that's important for us to really realize and to really hear these families out and to see where they're coming from. And so I want to thank each one of you for being brave and being courageous and selfless to come out here and share some words with the community and beyond about the experiences and the journey that you have been on. And I'm here for you, and I'm sure that there's a lot of people out here. If you want to support them in any way or any of the families here, please don't be afraid to contact me, and I can, or if these girls want to give out their information, but we can connect you to them if you want to go on further and support the search or the justice marches or in any other kind of way. Thank you.
We'll see. I just want to take a moment and thank everybody that stayed. Prior to the Paddler Lummi this past summer, our tribe hosted, and we had 4 themes for the days of our friends and relatives and the visitors that was coming to join in the potlatch. And the tribal government there in Lummi, they asked not only myself but other song composers to pray about these 4 themes, and one of them was MMIW. And all throughout tribal journeys, Indian country, we've shared songs. And this song here is a song that kind of, I was a powwow person before tribal journeys came into my life. I was born in plain style, dancing, singing, and that was my life before 2006 was our first tribal journeys that we attended, was Paddle and Muckleshoot. And some of those powwows, I've heard some of these ones talk about Yakima Nation, and I remember being back then, Yakima used to host the biggest powwows in the state here. You know, if you could place in Yakima, you were a good dancer. And that's the way it was, you know, and I remember being there, and, you know, just like any other, like sporting event or whatever, you go from powwow to powwow, and you see almost the same people. But I remember being there, and I remember families and friends, you know, seeing some of our friends Friday night at the powwow, then the families up there Saturday. You know, first grand entry, and they're asking for prayers for their niece, their daughter, their sister, or whatever. And I know that, you know, there's not probably a family in here that hasn't felt this scared feeling of, you know, praying and hoping that, you know, that individual's going to make it back home. And I tried to put myself, you know, in that person's shoes when this song came, and you know, and it's a universal song. We put this English language in it. So if you hear it and learn it, you know, and all we ever ask if you sing any of our songs is that you always acknowledge where it comes from. You know, with that respect, you know, because I know this is probably not the only gathering like this that there's going to be. And we're truly honored to be able to come here and share this song with, with all of our natives throughout Indian country. And I just wanted to thank each and every one, thank Roxanne and all the ones that got this together for us today. And thank you all once again for staying.
Oh
You know, with that song there, our prayer goes out to all the families that, you know, still don't want to give up hope. To those cases that's been open for years, some of them might have got closed. Without closure to the family, without closure to the loved ones, you know, we continue to pray, and we ask the Creator God to bring them home. Hashkasim.
Thank you. So our next speaker, I'm honored to introduce our brother. I've been lucky enough to do amazing work, and he does so much for the city of Seattle. I want to introduce Matt Remley. He lives in Duwamish territory here in Seattle with his family. He is the editor for Last Real Indians and works for the Office of Native Education for the Marysville School District. He's also the author of Seattle's Indigenous Peoples Day Resolution. He's the co-founder of Mazaska Talks. He was also awarded Seattle's Individual Human Rights Leader Award in 2014, and the list goes on of the accomplishments this brother has done. So with that, I would like to welcome up Matt Remley.
Ha matakepi. Chante waste na pechius apelo. Wakia wanatana machi apelo. Ate Charles Remley Chiapi. Ina Donna Harrison Chiapi. Duwamish Malkoche gi Awanwi Chakiayo. Well, good evening. My English name is Matt Remley. My Lakota name is Wakia Wa'anatan. Honkpapa Lakota, and live here in some Lakota is shot now. Close it out, you know. I live in Beacon Hill, and just like to thank Roxanne, Ixley, Rachel for all the many hours of hard work of pulling this together, and all the others involved to bring folks to the here tonight. You know, I bet the folks didn't realize they were coming to ceremony. You know, this isn't just lecture or town hall type talks, but we come to do this to do ceremony. In fact, what we just did, and I know my sister Rachel is used to me kind of calling plays at the last minute without really sharing, you know, but at least we didn't take over a bank or Wells Fargo this time. You know, I gave you some heads up about what we were going to do. But, you know, I was talking to the brothers here and said, you know, there's been so many good words, hard words shared tonight that what we wanted to contribute was just to put a little medicine into the families, into our elders, and into our youth. And the way we were taught, what we just did was we get that from the Pateo Yate, the Buffalo Nation. That's what they do when they circle up like that around when threatened. They put their elders and youth into the very center and they surround them to protect them, because they know that's what's most important, what's most valuable to its nation. And so that's something we learn from them, and we do the same thing. Put what's most important and valuable in the middle like that, and surround and protect. And I was also reminded that you know, our prayers are already answered in this room because we're given the gift of each other. And for some reason, we've forgotten to reach out to one another, to have relationships with one another. Our prayers are already answered amongst each other here. So draw on one another for support and in the different ways that you can. Before I introduce the relatives here, you know, one thing they asked to share about was, you know, what we've been talking about all tonight, you know, is nothing more than the continuing of colonization and genocide. This is settler colonialism in 2019. It's no different from 1492 to 2019, because it's always been about the removal and extermination of native peoples for the theft of resources and lands by settler populations. And that's exactly what is continuing to happen. And we can't be afraid to call it that. We can't be afraid to say this is settler colonialism, this is colonization, this is genocide. And we can put those words out there. You know, this isn't a post-colonial country. This is not a post-colonial continent. We continue to face colonialism to this day. I don't want to share too much because I chose to do that time doing that song, but I'd like to pass over to my brothers here to share some words on mass incarceration healing through ceremony and community healing. My cousin here actually found out we were cousins from Standing Rock here over the summertime. So this is my cousin George Farrell, AJ Abrahamson, and Jeremy. I can't pronounce your last name, so forgive me. And so let's give them a hand. They're going to share some words on this topic.
Good evening to everyone. As we have all sat here, laughed, sang, cried, we can see how we are so interconnected. As Indigenous people, we are interconnected with each other, with our land, with our everything, the air that we breathe, everything. And at this time, this panel, it is the last panel, however, is not any less important than everything that has been talked about here tonight. And Matt introduced each of the members here, present here on the stage. And I would like to ask each of you a question. I would like to begin with Jeremy, actually. So to you, how is the justice system, mass incarceration, and healing from ceremony related to MMIP, or missing and murdered Indigenous people?
Okay. First of all, I don't like microphones, so I'm going to try to get used to that. My name is Jeremy Garretson from the Northern Arapaho Nation, Wind River, Wyoming. My grandmother is Edith Warren. I'm from the Warren family, Runs Medicine family. Appreciate the invite, and I'm honored to be here. Now, as far as, you want to talk about mass incarceration, you want to talk about, I've heard the word recidivism thrown around here a lot tonight too, and that's healing through ceremony was the last part of that. And I mean, these things, I'm walking, talking every one of those every day, I want to talk about recidivism. About 40 years old, I started doing time at 14 years old. I spent all my juvenile years in juvenile facilities. When I was 18, I was shipped off to prison. I have 25 years worth of active gangbanging in the communities. Most of that spent gangbanging inside of the cages in the system. So you want to talk about recidivism, that's exactly what that word means right there. Somebody who gets incarcerated and yet gets out and continues the cycle to return to incarceration. But part of the problem with that recidivism is not always just where they return to, but what they return to. You can't break a cycle if you continue the same repetition. And that's where that healing from ceremony that you was talking about right there, These fellas on this panel, this means a little more to me than just some guys on a panel. I've walked the cages with these men. I've been on mainline with them. And I'm just new and recently to a changed way of life, I guess you could call it, to actively participating in my culture, It was beautiful to see my cousin Chelsea here from the same reservation, and I can say that I never returned to my reservation. I went there as a kid. I wasn't born on the res. I was born in Tacoma, Washington, and was raised between Tacoma and Yelm, active in a whole different kind of lifestyle and a whole different culture, so to speak. And all of my cousins and my brothers always would return back to the res. I never did, not until I was grown, because I didn't want to go back to where my family was and shame my mother by the way I lived my life. So I say that just to acknowledge my cousin here, and to let her know that. But back to that healing from ceremony part is George Farrell. This man is a fool. I love him to death. That's my brother. Now, I actually landed in a cell with this man during our little stays. Yeah, you forgot about that. Yeah, I was on the top bunk, always looking down at him, talking about, let me run this by you. Still running my scams on him. I got this new scam that I'm going to try when I get out this time, right? And he would look at me just like that, like, But it was the fact that I got to be with somebody that was so already in tune with our culture. It woke that little bit up on me, and I started going out to sweat and, actually actively engaging in that, And if anybody see me walking around in here, I got my daughter Mariah with me. That was, during that incarceration, I began to get trailer visits they have there, That was the first time I behaved long enough to get one, and I got to be with my daughter. And for once, I put something on the table more valuable than myself or the dollar bills. And I came back out of that first trailer and actually sat down and wanted to go and learn. I wanted to change. And it was through ceremony that I found that healing and that ability to change. It was through that inipi. And since I've been out, this is all I've done. I've continued this. So that recidivism is finally broke. It took me to being 40 years old to finally stop. But the point that I make with that is if I can be actively gangbanging for 25 years in a serious way, a fool with my whole life, and then get to a point to where enough is enough and change, then is capable of anybody. Recidivism can be stopped. And so with that, now that I'm out here and I'm living this path, that's outside of my job. What I do with my actual life is I go down to the Green Hill School for Boys, which is a juvenile prison, and I donate my time down there with the juvenile native group, and I try to reach one to teach one. I talk change, and I talk cure through culture, I talk recovery through ceremony. I talk these things to try to break that cycle and that recidivism. And how does it all intertwine with everything is because they're coming home to our communities, just like I did. And when I came home each time to the same thing, to the same drugs, to the same homies, to, admittedly, it's to the same family, That's what we all did as people in my family. It takes us now to get out and break that cycle so that we can be out here and give them an opportunity to come out and have something different and someone different. So it's by participating in any of these things that I can be allowed to participate in to make any more connections and networking and to just be a part of something bigger than myself. It's a way that now I can teach them how to do the same when they come home. Stop them at teens where nobody stopped me. They just kept giving me drugs and guns. Now I offer them recovery and culture. That's the healing through ceremony.
Thank you, Jeremy. And for those of you here present tonight, if you don't know Jeremy, AJ, and George, they do amazing work with the community, being able to step into different spaces within the city, with the people, within ceremony. I have shared ceremony with each and every one of all these gentlemen out here. But most importantly, is being able to reach the young people that are still within the system. At this time, I would like to ask AJ the same question. To you, how is the justice system, mass incarceration, and healing from ceremony related to MMIP?
We're good? Hello. My name is Aaron J Abrahamson. I'm enrolled with Port Gamble S'Klallam, part of the George family. I got about 7 different tribes in my bloodline, plus some Filipino and Chuyapi, but we're not going to rock with all that right now. I'm just happy to be here, get the invitation. It was kind of last minute for me, even though I was told about a month ago or however long ago. But it's nice to be able to come here and attend this time together and just bring awareness to whatever it is that we're trying to bring awareness to. But ceremonies, old way. I fell in 2009, and I met these guys in there towards the end of my time, but I got 101 months and never been to jail, never been to juvie, been running the streets for a while. I'm an urban Indian from the city. I don't know nothing about no res. All I know is they don't like me over there because I talk different. It's just not for me. So I tell people I'm from the streets. I run around West Seattle and Bremerton, Puget Sound, Hound. I'm just all over the place. And I knew nothing of ceremony. I don't know any songs. The only thing I got is like Native Pride gear, and I rep Redskin till I'm gone. You know what I mean? But I didn't know that way. I was never taught I was never sat down and say, hey man, let me teach you this song, little brother. I was never told, hey, I remember asking a relative, I said, why do you raise your hands like that? Why do you do that? Just a little boy, and this is what you do. All right. You know what I mean? Like, I was never really sat down and taught these things until I went to jail. And it was within the county that this white dude asked me. He was like, they always assume that I'm Mexican, which is, you know, I get it. But no, I'm Native, man. And he's like, oh, so you do sweat lodge? What? He was like, sweat lodge? You do sweat lodge? You're Native, right? You're Indian. I'm like, yeah. All right. And it was him, some random white guy, that just told me a little bit about the ceremony. The rocks glow and water and everything like that. And it was within that right there, it intrigued me. And I started asking about what you can have in jail. You can have all these cultural things. You can have beadwork. You can have beading. You can paint. He's an amazing artist. You know, like we have all these things, these cultural things. And it wasn't until I got to I got to Shelton and started singing a little bit, attending drumming, and trying not to get too involved with the prison politics and what they, you know, how that can consume you. But I started singing, and as soon as I heard somebody just kick out that lead, and I was like, that's what I want to do. He covered his ear and everything. He was getting it, and I was like, that's what I'm doing, right? And this brother, I got to Walla Walla, and deep close custody in there, and it was this brother. I can't think of his name, but he's from Lummi, and he sat me down and taught me a song, and he gave me a tape that he made in the cell on a stereo on a little super flat little drum, and he gave me this tape, and he was like, brother, your voice is amazing. He's like, you need to learn these songs. We need some singers. Let's do it. And I learned every song on that tape front to back. I don't know what them songs were. I am not Lakota, I'm Coast Salish. But I learned all of these songs, and I was singing as loud and proud as I could. I attended the sweat lodge ceremony, and them brothers in there, they sat me down, and they taught me about the medicine wheel, about the directions and the medicines, and why the fire is important, and why we prepare this way. And all these tools to contact the spirits, for us to be with them, you know. And I remember tending fire for a whole spring in Walla Walla. It was a hot spring. I lost part of my eyebrow, eyelash, smelled the stash, doing fire, just doing work. And I learned the whole time. And they gifted me a feather for that. And I continued to walk. We all have a moment in prison when we're coming in, I imagine so, that we kind of act up. We do a little bit, you know, frustration, you miss your family. You know, I had my daughter, the whole first 7 years of her life, me being locked up, I was not a part of her life. Maybe a handful of times I've seen her, and it's heartbreaking. It's hard to deal with. But I promise you, it was the ceremonies. It was the sweat lodge. You look forward every 2 weeks. Every other week, we're going to sweat. And we're going to prepare for sweat. Who's going to pour sweat? Okay, the elder's going to. George is pouring. Imagine that. George is pouring. But it's good ones. You know, we're preparing ourselves for that walk, this red road that we're trying to stay on that's so narrow. This red road is narrow, man. It is. And it was within these ceremonies in the prison system that I learned that on what's really important in life. You know, I really learned about what's important to me and my family and my community. When I was out there on the streets, running around with the pistol and thinking I'm somebody, I'm a grown man, and then DOC says, little boy, sit down. You know, that's hard to ingest. It is. And it was within the ceremony. It was within the sweat lodge. I learned that way, man. I adapted to the Lakota ways. You know, we're Longhouse. I'm from the Puget Sound, but I don't know nothing about that. I learned in there, and it was within that where it calmed me. It centered me. It showed me the red road. And it, not just for me. I'm the type of individual that once I learn something, I'll teach it to you. I will. I'll do my best to teach it to you. Any which way I can. And it was within them ceremonies that helped me walk now. Now I can step out of the prison system and accept the fact that, yeah, I had a bumpy road. What you tell me right before we got out? Right before we got out, he said, ain't where you been, it's where you going. Don't worry about what they think of you. Because that was one of my big problems. And I was like, man, I'm going to throw that precious stone in the back pocket. I like that, you know. But I think me and George got out, well, we all got out the same year, I think. And we're all the same facility. And we sweat every chance we got. If we didn't get a sweat, fog, what does it matter? We throw a fit, and we go to drumming. We attend drumming. We do all these things. I was actually gifted a chanupa in the prison. And that's a big thing, man. It is. For an elder to gift me, to make me a chanupa in the cell with a few pieces of sandpaper and just made it happen. He came out all pink, left a big trail. It was kind of funny, but he gifted me this chanupa, man. It was my walk that he seen. He told me that was powerful, you know. A lot of good brothers that have met me over the years, they love my words. They love, you know, I used to tell people, if you get your GED, if you go and get your vocational class, if you do something in here, I'll make you something. And those you don't know, my friends on Facebook, I'm super filthy when it comes to beating. You know, like I really am, and I know I am. And so what do I use? I use it as a tool for my people, man, for real. I use it as a tool because I promise you, we had about 17 brothers enroll in school, and I was busy. But I don't mind. I learned that in prison. I learned that in jail. I learned that from the Native brothers in jail. Guys that had been in there since, I had a cellie that was in there since 78. 78. He's the one that gifted me my chanupa, Neil Skinador. You ever see him, give him $1. You know what I'm saying? Like, I learned all of this in prison. Maybe I might be here sitting in front of you guys if I never went to jail. You never know who you're going to rub elbows with. But I went to jail, and I learned in there the ceremony. They say it takes 7 years. I don't know if this was a meme or a Google or what, but it takes 7 years for every cell in your body to recreate. You're a new person in 7 years. I did 92 months. It's just over 7 years. I came out a new person. I came out stronger, better, funnier, smarter. Like all of these qualities. I'm kind of, you know, but all of these qualities that helped me walk my path. This red road that I learned in jail was through the ceremonies. It was through the wanting to live. I couldn't wait to attend canoe journey. First day of canoe journey, flip canoe. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know, so, but, you know, I went and I did my best. And you know, my relative was telling me earlier that it's these ways that we need to harness. We need to hold on to these so that we can pass them down. I teach all that I can to when I can. You know, 24 hours in a day, I need 10 or 11 more. But, you know, this is the time. So it was within this prison system really that showed me a way. And it was that path, that red path. And I give thanks. You know, I raise my hands to all that don't really have to go to prison to do that. You don't have to go to jail. You don't have to get locked in that box. Just come ask me. Come ask him. Come ask her. Get involved with your people. If I would have known to have been like, Auntie, no, tell me why you raise your hands. Tell me why, because I want to know. Oh, it's because if we have nothing to offer anybody in this world, it's our hands. So I raise them to you. I learned that in jail. I learned a lot in there, but it strengthened me. And I'm a better man today. Today I got a 10-year-old daughter and 2-year-old son, Jayla and Cassius. They're super filthy. They're super filthy. I wish they were here tonight, but it's past their bedtime. But it was being incarcerated that I learned these ways, and you don't have to go to jail to do it. I'll show you. You know, that's what I tell my relatives anyway. Olsen.
Thank you, AJ. And with that being said, as I was mentioning, I have shared ceremony with each and every one of you out here. Our next panelist is George, and he introduced me to INIPI. You know, in that what you were saying, AJ, being able to carry that and teaching that. And for myself, and I don't speak a lot about my story, but to me, INIPI is what saved me in a lot of ways as well. At this time, I would like to ask the same question to George, because I know that he brings ceremony to many different spaces, and he's very generous in his teachings and the songs and in so many other ways. I'm gonna ask him the same question as well. To you, how is the justice system, mass incarceration, and healing from ceremony related to MMIP?
How's everybody doing tonight? Good? Well, let me hear you. How's everybody doing tonight? Yeah. You guys have a lot of good people come in front of you. And you guys are sitting amongst a lot of good people, a lot of beautiful people. You know, when we talk about mass incarceration, the people, how many of you guys know somebody or one of your relatives is in prison? You know, that's crazy. There's some of you guys that didn't raise your hand. You guys know me. You guys can raise your hand. Y'all know somebody that's been in the joint. You know what I mean? What's so crazy is that if we went to a different venue and I asked the same thing, we wouldn't get the same response. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. One of them is that, you know, our population, we're like a little over 2% of the population of Washington State. But we're like over 5% in the prison systems. Hey, listen, it gets deeper. You guys know, if I could get you guys to do something real quick, give me like 10 seconds of your time. Can I get everybody to stand up real quick? Just stand up. Everybody out here. I just want you to see something real quick. Everybody from my guy right here in this gray and black coat and the dude with his hat on backwards, all of you guys over here sit down. Go ahead, all you guys sit down. What's so crazy is that every native that comes up out of the joint within 3 years, all those people are going back to prison. What you're looking at right here, go ahead, you guys can sit down. I just wanted you guys to see that our recidivism rate is off the chart. We're at like #1 in like 5 different things. You know what I'm saying? Our recidivism rate, drug and alcohol related crimes, violent crimes, I mean, you name it. We are #1. But what's so crazy is that each and every one of you guys can pull your phone out right now and Google in Seattle, Native American reentry programs, and you're not going to come up with one. That blows my mind. We got one of the smallest populations with the biggest population in the joint. Does that not make sense? You know, I don't understand that. And I say this, it's so crazy. What you're looking at right here, all 3 of us right here, we all did time together. We all walked the main line together. I seen these, you guys are over here laughing and thinking that these guys are funny. AJ's pretty funny. I'll give him that. He was funny as hell in the joint. But he was mean. The brother, yeah, look. See, I'm trying to tell you, I know. But through the ceremony and through the medicine, it changed his heart. The brother down here, I promise you, you guys don't even know, man. These get-rich-quick schemes were coming out this brother's mouth so quick. Bro, what do you think about this? Let me shoot this by you. I promise you guys. But what's so crazy is that the conversations that we had, and just you guys, I wanted you guys to see that. To see that all three of us, we all walked on the same main line. We was all at the same place. And we're all three out here right now. We all got jobs. We ain't went back to the joint. You know, that's an anomaly right here. Yeah, give it up. Give it up. It's good. I'm going to tell you that, like, most of my family, with the exception of my sister, every single one of my brothers has been to the joint. I did time with all my brothers. Every single one of my brothers, for you guys who don't know, I went to the joint when I was 16. I just turned 16. I fell for a second-degree murder. Me and another guy, we got into a fight, and he died. And I got sentenced as an adult. They gave me 278 months. Yeah, you're telling me. So in the course of that time, all of my brothers, my brother Hoka, my brother Flint, my brother Che, they all passed through the joint that I was at. All of them. We went to visit together to go see my mom. You know what I mean? And that was the only time that all of us were ever together, which is crazy. We just went through all of our family pictures. We ain't got one picture of all of us together on the streets. I got my older brother Flint. He's in Walla Walla right now. You know, he's getting ready to get out, and he's going to Spokane. They really ain't got no program for him. And you know, the brothers that are in there, we know about ceremony. We understand how that helps us. You know, we're fed a regiment while we're in there. Our regiment is, boom, we got drumming, we got sweat. Some of the brothers got regalia room, hobby shop. That's your life. That's your program. You know what I mean? For the brothers that ain't on drugs and you're active in going to sweat and stuff like that, you know, that's what you come to understand. You respect that stuff. You know what I mean? When I first got locked up, I was in there with some brothers that if you cussed around the pipe, if you did anything sideways, crooked, or weird around the medicine, those brothers would kill you. It's not like out here where you can just do whatever you want, say something, boom. Those brothers would literally kill you. Come to you with a big knife like this big and put that thing through you. And so, like, what we have is, like, all this half of the room that just went back to the joint. That's what they're accustomed to. You know what I mean? And all of us out here, you know, I don't know if you guys really understand how important it is for us to take those people out of there. How important it is for us to keep those people out here. Our people. You know, because when you guys go and you take a look for yourselves inside the joints and you see who's in there, there's hella natives up in there. And our population, our group, our demographic is like 18 to 35. Which blows my mind because that's a whole generation that's supposed to be out here. When I first fell, the brothers that were the chiefs, the sub-chiefs, the whipmen, all those brothers were in their 50s. They were old men. They knew what was going on. But you go to the joint now, who's running the show? These young brothers, they're 25, 30. But that just goes to show you that all the people that are phased out, and they filled it right back up. All these pews, it's filled up with all of your cousins, your nephews, your brothers, my brothers. And, you know, the only real way to stop that, to stop us from going back into prison and the brothers out here to stay out here, is through the ceremonies. But not only that, it's for, you know, all of us that's out here already, we have to understand that there needs to be a plan. We can't just say, oh, yeah, we want you guys to stay out here. We want you to, you know, lead a productive life. When all that these brothers know is that. When I came out of that joint, it took me like 2 weeks to learn how to use a phone. You know what I mean? When I went to the joint, we had beepers. You know what I'm saying? You come out here now, I got some cassette tapes. And I asked some of these young guys, man, you know what this is? I have no idea what that is. Never seen a cassette tape. We used to bump them in the boombox, man. Had the Panasonic. Wood grain. My mama still got my Panasonic. You know what I mean? But we had to have a plan. And like us coming together like this as a community, I'm trying to tell you guys, it affects us as a community. It's not just my problem. It's not my problem because my people was going to the joint. It's all of our problems. We can't call ourselves a community unless we all address that. We address the people that go missing. Man, that's just starting to come to light. In my eyes, it's just starting to come to light. This has been happening for years. And nobody's cared about it. Nobody has really, like, the people outside of the Native communities haven't cared about it because it's not in our ways, in our traditions to be the squeaky wheel. It's not in our ways to be the squeaky wheel. It's not in our ways to stand up and say, hey, man, we got some stuff going on here, and 20 of us is doing that. No. We might have a few people doing that every now and then. But that's in our resilience. You know, in our ways, it tells us, man, that when the storm comes, we need to just go through it. Don't complain about it, go through it. That's what my mom always said. When the sweat gets hot, don't worry, man, just breathe. That door is going to open, and you're going to be okay. But that has to change, though. And it can't just come from 3 people. How the people out, how all of you guys can help in that process is that I want you guys to realize and understand that why we don't have any programs, why we have some programs, but they're not aimed at our demographic. We need the people out here to understand, and this is something that I heard from one of these cats that got out, man, it was the slickest damn thing that I done heard. He said, man, George, only a spider can repair another spider's web. And while we think about that, the only reason why these guys truly believe in that, truly believe that there's something better out here, is because they don't heard it. They don't heard it from one of their own. They've seen it. And so we need the people out here in the community. We need you guys that haven't been there to promote that, to say, you know what, we got some guys out here that are doing the work, but we got a lot of people out here that say they're doing the work, man, but they're not really in the community. They're not down in the dirt with the rest of the brothers. Because when we come out, we're kind of in the dirt. We're dirty a little bit. You know what I mean? It's hard for us to get the jobs. I was thankful the brothers up there at Daybreak, the brother Abe, he gave me my first job. The old man believed in me, and you guys don't know, man, I'm so grateful for that because I sat in the work release for 2 months, and I thought I was going to go back to prison because I couldn't find a job. And I talked to my CCO. I said, man, look, I just need some time. I don't know how to function out here. And he gave me a little bit of time, man, and I ran into the brother Abe, and he was like, look, I got you. We're going to write this job description up so you can have the job. Just come out here on call. Help us sweep some stuff up. And for me to say that to you guys might be like, oh, man, he gave him a chance. He didn't just give me a chance. You know, he gave me some understanding that, man, I can function out here. I can do that, man. I'm all right. You know what I mean? I got an old man that's going to believe in me. You guys don't know, man. The old man, he gassed me up. Came through. I was doing bad. Old man broke off, pulled out some money out of his own wallet. Here you go, youngster. I know you're doing bad. Take that money, man. Go buy you some clothes and stuff like that while I'm at the work release. But I was so thankful, you know what I mean? The grandfather, I know he put him in my path for a reason. And I'm grateful for that every day because that's my first job. I went from being secure to doing the securing. Crazy as that it was, I was doing a little bit of security. But the old man, he understood that. He understood where I was coming from. And I don't know if all of you, if I came to you and I said, look, man, I just got out of jail. Man, I was in there for murder. I just did 18 years. can you help me with a job? Are you going to have that same understanding? I didn't hear not one of you guys say yeah. And I'm trying to tell you that these brothers that are coming out, man, they need that opportunity. They need for the community out here to believe in them. And one of the things that we can do that is like so important and like gives these guys wind in their sail. I'm going to wrap it up. I just want to say this, that while we were inside the joint, inside the prison, no matter what kind of time we was doing, we had people that came in there and they gave us support. I was always blessed, man, whatever institution I was at. These guys was blessed. When they was there, we had people that came in and they blessed us with medicine. We had one of the brothers who used to sing for the medicine men. Man, he went up to Canada, brought us down some buffalo skulls that they brought from the Sundance. And they blessed us with those. And through those buffalo skulls, man, we got so much healing, it wasn't even funny. And we had everything that we wanted. Everything that we wanted in prison. And we was happy. But we needed the people out here to understand that we need that. We need that input. Those brothers in there, they need that input. They need for us to come together out here so that they got a path when they do come out. Sooner or later, sometime down the road, we're going to ask you guys for your help. And just as I come up here, it's not me up here telling you my story. I'm up here because I'm accountable to you. I'm accountable to each and every one of you. And I make mistakes too. These hands right here, these hands, they make mistakes every goddamn day. But if I don't step up to the plate and say, you know what, yeah, I fucked up. But I need you to believe in me because you know that I can do it. That's my commitment. That's my commitment to those brothers and to the community. And we're going to ask you guys for your help.
Thank you. Thank you, George, AJ, Jeremy, Matt, every one of you. Thank you for coming out here and sharing your words and sharing your stories as well. Really appreciate that.